Dear brothers and sisters, you are welcome to our Sunday's reflection. Today we celebrate the fourth Sunday of Lent, Year A. The fourth Sunday of Lent is also known as Laetare Sunday, the Sunday of rejoicing. And this is the time the church calls her members to rejoice because our salvation is drawing closer and closer. And we are not rejoicing because we are ending rigorous fasting, prayer, and almsgiving, but because the feast of Easter is close at hand. And today, the first reading from 1 Samuel chapter 16, verse 1b, continues from verse 6 to 7 and from verse 10 to 13a. Our second reading will be taken from Ephesians chapter 5, verse 8 to 14, and our gospel will be taken from John chapter 9, verse 1 to 14. And my dear friends in Christ, when you reflect on these readings of this Sunday, you will understand, or you will notice that there is a theme that runs through all these three readings, and it calls or reminds us not to judge based on appearance. In our first reading, the prophet Samuel will be sent to the house of Jesse to go and anoint one of his sons, and immediately he saw Eliab, he thought this could be the one the Lord has chosen. And the voice came to him that this is not the one you are to anoint. And it continues until he met David, and the Lord told him, this is my chosen one, and anoint him. And then he anointed him. And so when we reflect on this, many of the times in our lives also, you see we make certain decisions based on what we see, but we do not go beyond just what is presented to us, just the physical, and then we make judgments. And when we do that, we might not arrive at a better judgment, we might not arrive at something that is concrete and substantial. And God does not deal with us in that manner. God watches the heart and does not mind or bother so much about the appearance. And in our gospel reading also, we see how the man who was suffering, who has been blind for so many years, has been judged just because he's blind. Many at his time was thinking that this man was blind because he had sinned, or perhaps the parents had committed a sin. And Jesus Christ will again tell them that this man is not suffering because of his sin, or neither the sin of his parents, but just for the work of God to be manifested through him. And so certain times we go through certain situations in our lives, and we think because we have sinned, that's why those pains are befalling us, those tragedies are befalling us, or probably because our family members or someone has done something, that's why we are suffering. But Jesus Christ is reminding us that not because we have sinned, not because our family members have sinned, not because of any fault of ours, but sometimes those events are befall us so that the power of God can be manifested through them. And so it's a calling also to go to Jesus as who we are. We saw Jesus doing something extraordinary, something unusual. He normally will not perform a miracle by mixing clay, but this time he mixed clay and put on the eyes of the man and cured him. And this is to tell us that we will also go back to Jesus in our weakness, in our brokenness, and he will recreate us just as in the beginning God created human being and created the world just by molding clay together. Jesus Christ will also remind us that when we come to him in our brokenness, he will mend us, he will bind us together, and we will become whole, just as he did to this blind man who was considered as a sinner, who is now bearing testimony to Christ. And also when we encounter Jesus Christ in our lives, when we meet Jesus Christ, we are transformed, we are created, and then we also take on the image of God. And so when they interrogated the man, he said, I am. And Jesus Christ will say several times in the gospel, I am the bread of life. More than 26 times, Jesus said, I am. And so that is the image the man has taken upon himself. He has won Christ. He has taken the divine nature of God upon himself, and therefore his life is never going to be the same. And when people saw him, they were wondering, is this really the blind man? And so also when we encounter God in our lives changes, we are transformed. We are never the same as who we have been in the past. And sometimes people even wonder, is this really him? Is this really her? And so let us be encouraged by this act of Jesus and this act of the blind man, and also approach Jesus as who we are in our challenging moments, in our difficulties, in our brokenness. Let us go to the Lord. And when we encounter Him, He transforms us and makes us better versions of who we were in the past. And most of the time, it becomes a marvel in the eyes of many. And so this Sunday, we are called not to judge people by their appearance, but rather go beyond just what we see and mostly look at the hearts of the people like God does to us, and also sympathize with them just as God will sympathize with us. I wish you a blessed Sunday, and may God bless you all.